Welcome back to my video. This is my 1 through 70 walkthrough of my Night Elf Druid, ChillChedder. In this I will be going from level 10 to 20. As you can see, I am already ahead of the game from doing the Exile's Reach. So let's start off with nothing to it but to do it. First I want to take a quick look at my talents. I'm probably going to go with Boomkin. I've always really favored that spec, especially over Feral. It always seems to kind of be a little more favored than Feral does. Feral isn't bad. It's kind of just if you just like melee or if you like range. There's also tank and healer. However, since I do not have very good gear, Guardian right now probably isn't the best option. Restoration is an option. However, I think starting out as DPS can work a lot better. When doing quest or dungeons, you kind of want to do what you feel most comfortable with. For quest, I always recommend doing DPS. Sometimes you can do Guardian, but I would never do Restoration. I think Boomkin actually is one of the better ones for questing. Down here. Down here you will see I have not turned in the quest yet. Let's go ahead and do a check. I still got 6 gold, a little bit of stuff in my bags. Then I got mostly greens with a toss in of a blue. However, most of these greens still aren't very good. They're better than what I would have came out of with the starter area. However, they're still not great.
Good to see you, recruit.
As a new player, I'm not aware if you can actually skip this. However, I
Grooming
plan
again.
to because I know where everything in Stormwind is. But going to Chromie definitely is a plus. Sometimes you just gotta jump around a little bit. As you can see, Chromie is back here near the Stormwind Embassy. This is where a lot of the allied race stuff is, which is from Battle for Azeroth. Stormwind looks kind of dead right now, not too bad. You got the auction house to your right, bank to your left. If you ever need to find something here, you just come over and talk to a guard.
What can I do for you?
Well, usually you can go talk to a guard. Let me find one. Here we go. And they'll have a list. They can show you
Need something?
professions, trading posts, all that stuff. Over
What can I do?
here, I will be showing you the barber. Mostly because I like to change my cat form and bear form just to make it look cooler. You can't actually get into it though while you're in the form. What my druid looks like. Then you just go over to bear form. I have some pretty interesting looking ones. My favorite is this one for bear, and then for cat, I wish they would reanimate and do a new skin for this. Let me find it because it kind of looks a little flat in my opinion. It's still a nice looking skin, but if you compare it to like these really detailed skins, I honestly kind of like that one better now. Go back to travel form. Well, it's important to go to Chromie because from the start you can only do Battle for Azeroth dungeons if you don't switch it. I don't recommend doing Battle for Azeroth dungeons. Most of them don't have quests. I don't actually think any of them have any quests. And the expansions with quests is Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm, and Mist of Pandaria, I believe. However, Cataclysm dungeons aren't scaled particularly the best in the world, and Mist of Pandaria dungeons aren't bad, but there's not very many, so if you do it, you're going to hit a bunch of the same ones. But those dungeons are fast, so it's kind of a trade-off. Classic, Burning Crusade, and Wrath tend to be the best for dungeons, just because there's a lot of
What can I get
dungeons.
for you
A lot
today?
of the dungeons have multiple quests, so it is kind of nice. I accidentally sold my 8-slot bag there. I'll sell that. There's no point of
Off
keeping the
we go.
bags once you get upgrades because later on you'll easily be able to buy 32 slots from the auction house. This right here is the heroes board, which lets you go to like zones and stuff. Tanahan Jungle, which is in Warlords of Draenor. You got Northern Stranglethorn, which is in Classic at the very bottom of actually this area, or this continent down here. And you got Broken Shore, which is Legion. This right here is Chromie.
It's like meeting again for the first time.
Now, if you want to do Classic dungeons, you do have to do Cataclysm, which is pretty much putting you in the Classic era. Then you got, obviously, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Mist of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and then Shadowlands. If you're going to quest, Draenor isn't bad because it has world objectives that give you a lot of experience too. However, Shadowlands, I would avoid that. I didn't really like the zones very well. I think Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, Classic, and Legion probably have the best zones. Cataclysm isn't horrible, however, I'm still not a huge fan of the zones.
Who would have thought someone named Deathwing would bring about so much destruction?
You just have to take the quest. You don't actually have to go do the quest. Then you just sign up for Cataclysm or Classic. I don't even have the gear to actually do Cataclysm. Hopefully I don't get in too fast. I was wanting to show the Darkmoon Fair, which you can get this at the Darkmoon Fair. It's a pair of wings. For that, I would just recommend looking up a video on the blazing wings on YouTube. I've had it for a while, so I don't fully remember how to get them. One thing I did forget to do is once I got into the spec was to set my stuff. Go ahead and do that real quick. And then you want to also make sure to go down and do your talents. Since I'm level 11, I do have one for both, and as you level, it trades off, giving you one for each. I like to kind of put my dots right here, and then put these right here. I don't know how well that actually works. Like I said, I usually prefer to use a gaming mouse that has buttons on the side for MMOs. But the clicks on it are so loud, I really can't use it, or you will hear it through the recording, unfortunately. If someone wants to go to the Darkmoon Fair, it's right outside of Stormwind and Goldshire, right about here. There's also a portal on the other side of the map in Thunder Bluff area, right outside the Horde City. You can get to it without having any issues, so that is nice. As a new player, it would be important to get the Stormwind Tabard. This is because
Farewell.
if you get it and put it on and raise your rep with Stormwind, it'll reduce the amount you have to pay for flying, mounts, and all that kind of stuff. It really doesn't matter too much
How
for
are you?
these because they're not that much. However, this right here can get it down to 4,000, which is really nice.
Feet on the ground.
It's also important to make sure to get Flight Master. That way I can fly back. Usually I would set my hearth. Actually, I might want to set my hearth while I'm here. Stormwind's a nice hub city. Pretty easy to get around, navigate. If you plan to heal dungeons, you do want to go to an innkeeper and pick you up some waters. Usually I just buy the best that I can afford. In this case, since I'm kind of broke, I would look at my mana, see how much mana I have, and then buy accordingly to what I need. If you already have a max level, then buying the best will keep your mana full the fastest, so that does tend to help.
Safe travels.
To change your inn, just go up to it, make this inn your home,
Farewell.
accept, and now you have a new inn. Now we actually got to where I can go to these. Whenever I was doing Exile's Reach, some of this stuff was blocked off. We got the Adventures Guide, which has suggested content at the very bottom. You'll see Raid Finder discard works. I'm not even sure. Oh, that's new content. You got all this stuff. You got scrimmages. You got dungeons, which is the dungeon journal, and it can show you dungeons for like all the expansions if you want to happen to farm a appearance. Couldn't remember what the name of it was for a second. This is new though. I've actually never seen this. Mythic Plus dungeons. Oh yeah, I remember now. So in a way to introduce older content to new content, Blizzard is now taking older dungeons and putting them in rotations, which is kind of nice. I've actually never done this dungeon because of how old it is, but I've done every one of these other dungeons, I think. I haven't done this one either. Halls of Infusion, that's from Wrath of the Lich King. This is Cataclysm. Actually not sure where this is from either. I didn't do too much in the new expansion, so I haven't actually done those dungeons too much. The couple dungeons I did, I wasn't too enthusiastic about. Driving while looking at my map is kind of difficult. I actually used to really like this as a Mythic Plus. This is also where you get a mount, which is a kind of neat mount. It does take a while. I accidentally got it while doing a Mythic Plus. I didn't even know it dropped in there. This is something, if the dungeon is taking too long, it'll pop up. You want to hit no unless you want to expand it. However, it expands it to all the expansion packs, not any specific one, which is kind of unfortunate. If I could set it to expand it to like Classic, Wrath, and Burning Crusade, I would.
I need a target.
It would be nice if they could change it to where I could also queue for multiple expansions at once versus just queuing for the one. I think this is actually just as fast as the travel form, unfortunately, too. They've had Darkman Fair around for a while. I think it came into the game around Cataclysm. However, back in Cata, it actually had a lot more in-game content to it. This over here gives the 10% experience buff. So does the roller coaster. We just come over here and buy a ticket and walk in. It does cost you a gold for 5, I think. However, it's not too bad. Just jump on it and ride it. This buff does go away if you die, unfortunately, and it gets 10% to experience and reputation. If you're planning on just spamming dungeons, it is a pretty good buff to get. If you want to quest and do dungeons, however, it's not worth it, just because you have to walk all the way back here, and I should have got the full buff. As you can see, there's a bunch of dailies around here. It's just the way to get prize tickets. You can also get heirlooms from this.
Has a price.
I'm not sure to what level you can level them up to. It looks like 35 is the highest, and the base is 29. As you can tell, I own a lot of the heirlooms already. The trinket is probably one of the best to have for the level, mostly because you actually don't get trinkets very soon. I think it's actually pretty high. And if you get this, it's pretty much good for all classes.
Remember the sun well.
Trying to think of other.
Talk to me.
You can get some cosmetics.
Be good.
Safe travels.
Get some toys. This is a portable hat that gives you the 10% buff. However, it takes like 10 prize tickets, which is not fast to get. So I don't know if it's fully worth it getting. and it's not reusable unless they changed it. If it was reusable, then it would be good to go. I'm gonna go my dungeon. Wish I had a boomkin form. I don't think I get that until like right here. As you can see, I am 3 bars into level 11, so let's see how much experience I get. I don't think it'll be too high for this dungeon because I do think this is a short dungeon if I remember right. I'm not expecting to do too much damage. Let's die pretty quick. There are really short paths you can take in dungeons. For example, instead of walking all the way around, you can just walk off this edge. Usually people are pretty nice and will tell you. You do have to kind of watch when you're jumping though. You can open your map and it pretty much shows you how to get through the dungeon. This dungeon only actually has 2 bosses, I think. Because you skip the last boss because there's no point of doing it. They used to be a completion bonus for doing all 3 bosses, plus the random dungeon. However, they got rid of that, so there's no point of even walking back there now. It's also the part that people are most likely to die at, so. You know it's a rough day when I'm top DPS. As you can see in the chat down here, I'm getting Storm Run rep experience. I think after Honored, as you go up, you only get it from certain things. Like right now, where I'm so low, I get it from everything. I think at Revered, you only get it from bosses. It's either that or it's just quests. It's one of the two. One of the reasons my damage is so high is my level. Blizzard gives DPS at this level a pretty nice little buff. That's 1 boss down. The only real AoE I have at this level is Starfire, so proccing that and just spamming this is my best option for damage. As a new player, especially if you do not have heirlooms, then dungeons are very needed to supplement your gear. I think last time I tested doing quests, level 10 dungeons or doing dungeons at level 10 gave me better gear than quest at level 20, which is to me it kind of seems like a big issue. However, that was in classic questing. I think I was like in the Goldshire area or maybe Westfall. So that might have been my issue. If I did other expansions, I might have gotten better gear.
I need to target something first.
So far, I've only gotten 2 bars, which isn't horrible. This is a pretty fast dungeon, like this is the last boss. Some dungeons actually have a lot of bosses. Like I think there's some that have like 10. Those are the dungeons that usually are a little more confusing and have layering and stuff, which those are higher level. I'm not sure with the level system they use now of everything scaling when you might get those. I think it's usually around the 40s, 50s, near the end. Another really nice thing about having heirlooms is if you want to transmog them, you don't have to really mess with them because they level with you. So if you have the ones that go all the way to 60, transmog them, you're good till 60. We got some nice gear out of that. I do not know where I got that cloth head. Another thing that's nice about dungeons is you get a little bag that usually has gear in it too. Pop that on, pop that on. You can use cloth, however, I'm going to probably keep this and maybe check the auction house for it. Sometimes BOE blues is definitely worth checking. Sometimes they sell for a lot. Where I leveled, I do have a new talent to spend. Another thing is, yeah, that dungeon took me 9 minutes. And I got a level. Not too bad. And I got Boomkin for him. For some reason, I have to put it on my action bar for a while. I'm not sure what the deal with that is. Because in a couple levels, then I can just put it with my other forms. I think it's kind of a mess up on their part. If you really want to go for dungeon speed, I would also recommend sometimes just queuing as a healer. Which unfortunately I forgot to buy mana drinks, so I need to go do that if I'm going to queue as a healer. That way I can try to mix it up and not just do Boomkin all the time. Plus leveling up, it's fun to swap. Like a druid has 4 specs, might as well play them all. That way you know what you like. Some of the best starter classes in WoW do tend to be that. You got paladins, you got monks, and you got druids that can do all 3 roles. Druids are the one that can do every role in the game, so melee, range, DPS, and heals. Or no, melee, range, tank, and heals. That way you can kind of see, oh, well, I prefer melee or I prefer range. If you do play WoW and you have a SSD, I would advise putting it on your SSD. It's really nice for the loading screens. Loading screens can become a pain in the butt because there are a decent amount in the game.
Light be with you. Go with honor, friend. Be careful for the Alliance.
Right now I'm looking at a unknown queue time. However, I think I'm going to pop into heal spec. That way I can go ahead and
Good day to you.
try to get a faster queue. Usually I wouldn't do it, but I'm gonna go ahead and buy the more expensive drinks. In dungeons, it can be
Safe
nice
travels.
to just pop your drink and go. I'm not brave enough to attempt tank with this type of gear though. You could probably do it, however, you might struggle to keep your tank alive, struggle to keep people alive in general. I wish my book wasn't covering this one spell. Just put my heals down here. One nice thing is I guess I do get an AoE heal. Go ahead and do that. And life bloom. Let's save my queues a little bit faster now. You can queues multiple roles, like if you almost want a guaranteed instant queue, DPS heals tank. Tanks usually have instant queues. Healers tend to have instant queues as well, but not always. A little fight going on here. Level 20 and a level 20.
You need something?
That's what the
See you
Dartmouth
around.
Fair looks like.
See you later. Have a good one. Greetings. Go
I
with
should be
honor.
able to quest in DPS spec, and I think it puts me back in heal restoration spec. However, when it swaps me into the dungeon, I will have no mana, so having mana drinks is even more important. I was confused there for a second. I saw my action bars wasn't there, and I was like, huh, that's weird. And that figures. Just set it up while I wait. Let's see. Yep, no mana. It is nice it swaps me, however, the no mana thing is kind of a pain.
We barely escaped the Twilight's Hammer sacrificial altar.
Find them, you imbeciles! Lord Bathiel will not be denied his
Most tanks don't
sacrifices.
pay attention to what your mana is. One nice thing as a healer, you can DPS if you want. Low level, you really don't have the utility
I
to.
don't have a target.
Sometimes you can. Always make sure to buff. I'm really bad to forget that. Oh, I forgot. I am level 12 and I am 3 bars from leveling. So I guess I'll see what I get from this. And my buff is at 55 minutes. When making these jumps, you do have to be careful as a druid. Having that extra speed is nice. This rope's meant to, if anyone falls, they can just walk over versus having to do it. This rope half the time does not work, so don't rely on that.
I'm out of range.
I think a lot of people, usually as druid, just kind of walk up and swipe. But that's more of a advanced play style, at least in my opinion.
Wait! Wait, it's too soon! No!
Because all you have to do is buff up the tank and just go in.
Too far away. I need to get closer.
Of course, your priority is still to heal. One of the reasons it's so hard at this level is because you don't have anything to extend your hot duration, which is heal over times. I didn't do too much damage, but every little bit helps. There are times in dungeons where you can skip bosses and it won't affect the end, which is nice. I do sometimes forget that I'm healing, which can be bad. This tank is pretty good though, so that is helping a lot. He does have heirlooms. That's a pretty nice heirloom. Strawberry heal. This is a nice heal, however, it consuming it over time does kind of suck. As a healer, you really don't have to DPS if you kind of want to just AFK healer it.
The more blood
Healer's definitely the nicest one to do if you just want to watch TV or something while you're playing. Oh, our tank left. I was wondering where my heals were at. I was like... I don't know why I can't click on this guy. What's nice about doing this boss is you get a 10% stat buff if you kill him from the thing behind it, if you click it. A lot of people don't know that, so they don't click it. This is the one huge downside to dungeons if your tank happens to leave, which doesn't happen a ton, but if it does, then you're kind of just sitting around waiting. We have a hunter though, so I mean the hunter pet could tank if you just turn growl on. Go ahead and look at this while we wait. Oh, I'm just not sitting here. Got my mounts, probably one of my favorite mounts. Astral Cloud Serpent comes from Mista Pandaria. You got the Grand Expedition Yak, also comes from Pandaria. It has a transmog vendor on the side, so you can transmog your gear on the go. It's pretty nice. Not even sure how I got that one, to be honest with you. I got it, but I honestly love it. This mount's really nice. It lets you herb while mounted, so you don't have to like dismount. Druids can do this automatically though, so if you're a druid, make them a herber, you're good. This mount can also fly. Another vendor mount. This one comes from Wrath of the Lich King. This one only costs 20k. I think the other costs 120k. DragonFlight mounts for dragon riding. I do have a couple. They might have introduced some more since I came back to the game. I originally thought this was a dragon. I'm not 100% sure what this is. Maybe a ferret? That looks like a flying ferret, to be honest with you, with the tail. They do have some pretty interesting mounts in the game. Some people play this game just to collect mounts, so that's kind of interesting. I only have 198 and I've played for a while, but I've never really farmed mounts. On occasion, I'll go run old content just for fun. Let me see what else we got. Got my achievements. I got 15,590 achievement points. This really isn't that high. There's probably people who have a lot more. This is just from passively getting it. I haven't actually went for any achievements. We got guilds and communities. This is where you can sign up, find a guild. The only thing that kind of sucks about this is I've never really had any luck with it. I don't think a lot of guilds actually use it, personally. You got the group finder. You can always hide it and like I'm gonna get a satchel, 4 gold, and 10,000 experience for finishing this dungeon. What kind of sucks is that we probably would have been done with this dungeon already if the tank hadn't left. If I was a little higher level, I might consider trying to tank it. However, where we had another DPS leave also, that kind of sucks. One thing that really sucks about being the healer, if I was a DPS, tank leaves, I just go tank spec, better than nothing. However, as a healer, I obviously really can't do that. And we got some. Looks like I'm not gonna get a DPS any. Low level tanks is kinda expected. I'm kinda surprised that 39 tanks taking that much damage. Because most of the time at low levels, tanks don't actually have much in the way of damage reduction. They just do a lot of damage. I just noticed that most of this group is actually pretty high level. Bunch of 40s, 50s, and 60s. You got my mighty level 12. There's the little buff back here. Increase all stats by 10%. Paladin is a pretty fun class, especially with tanking. I hate Paladin healing, which kind of sucks because I used to love Paladin healing.
The intruders are still alive. Stop them! The ritual must not be disturbed.
I still like Paladin tanking and DPS, however, I find it kind of boring to DPS as a Paladin. And I find it hard to play one spec on any character. It's one of the reasons I very rarely play single, like, only DPS classes like Rogue, Mage, and stuff. I just get kind of bored with it. Plus, if you can tank or heal, your Qs are a lot faster, so gearing up can be a lot faster.
I need a target. I need to target something first.
If you want to level as fast as possible, I would recommend probably spamming dungeons, at least until you get some gear if you're a new player. If you are a returning player with heirlooms, it really doesn't matter what you do, because honestly, quests can be just as fast as dungeons.
I need a target.
Even though a lot of people say that questing is slower than dungeons.
Fall back to the sanctum. Lord Bathiel. You wrecked Rock's catch of legendary guardian crab. Rock want guardian treasure. These cats be too ugly to eat.
Or if I have a res. I do.
These cats be too ugly to eat.
Doing the human that way.
Drunk is hooked on you.
I would definitely say comparing WoW to other MMOs, at one time it did have a pretty good leveling experience. Now I think it honestly kind of sucks and is boring. If you compare it to something that has like interactive combat, because I'll be honest, sometimes I even find myself like wandering off while playing the game. That's one of the reasons I usually like try to watch TV or something. It keeps me somewhat
Now I get the pleasure
occupied while
of
playing.
removing your heads.
If you've never played WoW though, the leveling experience isn't that bad. I've leveled probably over at least 50 tunes, probably closer to 100 at this point, because at one point I actually would level and delete tunes sometimes just to see how fast I could level them to max before the squish. This was like when the range is 1 to 20. Oddly enough, I could level faster 1 to 20 or 1 to 110, which is right before BFA, faster than I can level 1 to 60. Because usually I would get like 2 levels of dungeon and all kinds of stuff. The stuff didn't hit as hard. Like the dungeons actually do hit a little bit harder now, which is nice for a little bit added difficulty. But honestly, it feels like it just makes it take longer. Like I don't really have to dodge anything. I can kind of just sit here and take the hits and heal through it. If your group doesn't have anyone pulling like really high damage, stuff just takes forever to die.
I delayed long enough. Akamai will rise.
One thing you could do when healing or replaying anything is kind of hard to explain. Set up your globals, for example, when I cast this, right as I finish, double it up with a regen, or even double it up with a swift mend, which is kind of would make it like a really big heal, especially for this level.
You are too late, heroes. The summoning of Akamai is complete. Before I kill you, know this, heroes. Akamai will devour this world.
This might get a little hairy. Because I don't think we have a ton of AoE. One nice thing about Light Bloom, when it finishes, it does do kind of a small heal. So you're better off not letting it, or you're better off letting it run out, even though the heal isn't great at this level. Another nice thing is I can kind of dot everybody to help with the AoE healing aspect of it. That right there is like 5 expansions worth of experience in healing though, to keep everybody alive. Most new healers would have struggled with that. When healing, the best thing to do is prioritize tank over everybody else, because if the tank dies, then everybody dies. You're better off 2 DPS dying than the tank dying. Oh, this isn't going well. This is where we probably get into wiping. Our damage is kind of low. I'm not sure why it's so low, really. I do regen mana decently at my low level, though. However, with how much damage everybody's taking, I'm probably going to run out soon. Yeah, it's not looking good if we don't kill this soon. Oh, that's not good. They just put all of them right beside the boss. We got it.
Nothing, fools! Akumai! Arising!
One more boss. This is a bad example of a dungeon taking a while. Like, I'm on level 13, but if I had done quest versus doing this, I probably would have already been like level 17, 18 by now. I don't know if they know that you don't have to actually fight that stuff.
I'm out of range.
Sometimes it will pick up someone. You just kind of let it do its thing and run.
I need to get closer.
I am surprised the damage is doing so low though. 27 is pretty low for DPS. I mean, I'm doing like second highest damage.
I need to target something first.
This is when it's kind of important to do damage as a healer. So now I'm level 14 and 2 bars. Didn't do too bad on that. However, due to the length of the dungeon, it wasn't very good either. I did get some nice gear out of it though. So waist, pants, and shoulders. I'm gonna TP out. Usually I would be probably around, I'd probably say 18 by this point. Let's try the DPS, see what the queue looks like. I am getting pretty nice gear though, so it is kind of worth it. Like you can see the drastic upgrade. The more gear I get, the more damage I can do, faster I'll level. I was gonna go over here, kill some kobolds, explore the mine. I'll explore the mine first, that way I'm doing two things at once. I'm getting my things and exploring the mine. I did not mean to pull that. However, it's not the end of the world. Usually as a boomkin, you just kind of tag and dot, tag and dot. I'm kind of fine with that resetting. I didn't need to kill that anyway. How to effectively level as a boomkin. Cast nothing besides heal. This on my right is a mine. If you had mining, you could get that. However, while leveling, professions really aren't too useful. At least in my opinion, because none of the expansions are linked anymore, so you could go do DragonFlight directly at 60. Tired of being a Draenei. I want to be a red Draenei. I kind of wish this was a form for the Draenei because it looks pretty cool. I'm gonna pull 3 of them, make sure I get enough. Oh, that's a rare one, so I'm gonna have to do a little more damage to it. You tell it's a rare by the little star on its name. As you can see, really wasn't much of a threat. However, the rare one did not drop the gold dust. Just gotta speed demon it back to turn my quest. Another thing that's not helping with dungeon queues, it's like 4 in the morning. This is a Eastern, like I think an Eastern time zone server, Pacific time zone, one of the two. So at this time of the day, you're gonna have the least amount of players on, unfortunately.
Go with honor, friend. Hello. Safe travels.
If I had decided not to do Exile's Reach, I would have started over here, this little area, went to this Flight Master, then by here I would have been level 10 and I would have flown over to Darnassus and ran to Stormwind. I do this because I actually really like this side of the map. It has some of my favorite zones, the ones I enjoy playing, like Stranglethorn Vale. Westfall is pretty nice too. I should have had this quest though.
See you later.
This is a great example of I messed up by not getting the quest, so now I have to go back and do it again. So making sure and confirming you have all your quests is very important. One of the reasons I couldn't see it though is because my minimap has so much crap on it up here. I couldn't actually see the quest on it. Back to the mines.
I need to get closer.
Yeah, that's one big thing you have to watch is going too far and then them invading like that, which really sucks. Another bad thing is since I was just here, this stuff hasn't had time to respawn yet, so I am going to have to go back in the mine. You can cast Regrowth while in Boomkin, which is also nice, because deforming would lose me a bunch of armor and spell damage. I don't know how accurate this is. I have noticed if there is a drop quest, for example, large candles, and you pull a bunch of stuff, I think it actually might have a lower chance to drop. It's just something I've kind of noticed. Because if I don't do that and I pull them singles, they seem to drop it a lot faster.
I don't have a target.
Gotta love cat form and speed boost in mines. I can just run my little butt out and I'm good to go. That's a pretty sad little sword. So close to 15.
What can I do for you? See you around. Have a good one. Safe travels.
I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, mostly because that one dungeon was a great example of how dungeoning can kind of be slow. So this video is kind of getting a little bit up there in the time of an hour.
For the Alliance.
And I try not to go too much over that. That way the videos sit well. That's why whenever I get higher level, I will tend to make shorter level gaps like 10 to 15, 15 to 20, stuff like that. Once I hit like in the 60s, I'll probably do 60 to 61, just depending on like the time of leveling. But I hope you enjoyed the video. My next part will be levels 15 to 20. Until next time.